So guys, it's Benji here from the Sling Den, and I'm bringing you the 26th episode of the Sling Den. And with me today, I have this year's ECST winner, none other than Weston Crockett. Welcome to the Sling Den.
Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Obviously, we're going to touch on all things ECST and all the great things that you accomplished in your short time within the hobby. But for the people who don't know who you are, let everyone know your backstory in slingshots. When did you first pick one up? How old were you? What was your main goal of picking up a slingshot and all that sort of good stuff?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as a lot of people have, I shot the old wrist rocket as a kid, shooting sticks, rocks, and I enjoyed it a little bit, but I never really picked it up until last November. I had a buddy out here that we were flying birds together with, and he uses a slingshot to hunt to kind of get squirrels and rabbits moving. So he let me shoot one, and then he made me a natty. And the beginning of December, I picked it up and I just haven't looked back. I went down the rabbit hole hard. So, been shooting since December. I picked up long draw in February. So, I've been strictly long draw since February.
So that is a really, really short time to be shooting. And again, we'll talk about the accomplishments later on. But I just noticed on your back wall there, that's a hell of a lot of slingshots for such a short period of time. I'm guessing you caught the bug pretty quick as soon as you started using one, as soon as you started hitting targets and things like that. It was kind of like, all right, I need to go running with this thing, right?
Yeah, it hit hard. Plus, I have a young daughter. So, I wanted to try to find something to do where I'm not always gone or kind of around it. I just picked it up and I haven't looked back since.
Yeah, I have the same sort of feeling. It's one of those things where you can maybe take 10 minutes to go out and do some practice, or you can take sort of 2, 3 hours depending on what you're doing, and it's very, very flexible in that respect. Um, Talk to me about, you mentioned that your buddy there was using it for a little bit of hunting and things like that. Is that stuff you've done yourself, or did you kind of just want to go into it for the hobbyist side of things?
For why originally, yeah, I wanted to pick it up to use it for the hunting aspect because they fly hawks and they're in the falconry, so we hunt quite a bit together. So I did use it for that originally, and then I picked it up just to try to get better. Went home, watched a bunch of YouTube videos, and really dove into it. And then when I started shooting spinners and stuff, I started getting into the YouTube community and the Facebook groups, and then it just kind of spiraled from there.
And would you say, obviously your buddy was the one that introduced the hobby to you, but was there anything else that kind of piqued your interest when you did kind of go onto the socials and look on YouTube and things like that? Was there anything else that kind of drew you to it, or was it just the fact that you could go outdoors and start hitting targets with something that's pocketable?
I think a little bit of both. I really like that there was a bunch of homemade or people making a bunch of cool frames at home. I really like the art side of it. I guess what really took me is the meditation aspect of it to get my mind off of everything else to go outside, whether like you said it's 10 minutes, 2 hours. I really enjoyed that time to myself in the afternoon to go shoot. So I think that's what really got me hooked.
And usually it's quite a slow burner in terms of progress with a slingshot. It certainly was for me. Going from, barely able to hit a tin can, and then as you go along, it's, spinners, and the spinners get smaller. And then if you are out hunting for small game and things like that, it adds another element to the trickiness of the shots. And for you, being able to accomplish what you've accomplished this year, and again, we will touch on that a little bit later on, but what do you think has allowed you to kind of progress as quickly as you have? Because it's not something that many people do is, get from A to Z as quick as you have.
Right. Yeah, and it amazes me. So I don't know. I guess I was trying to because a bunch of people have asked me since then, so I've tried to think about it. But I think the one thing is me being new is I had the bug hard. So I when I wasn't shooting, I was thinking about shooting. When I wasn't shooting, I'm watching videos or trying to learn. But every second that I get, I'm pretty much out shooting. But I don't know. I never shot just for fun. My always outlook on anything that I do is if I'm gonna waste my personal time doing it, I want to try to be the best that I can. So when I would come home and shoot, I would never shoot for hours at a time. I'd shoot several like 20 to 30-minute sessions a day. But I always was serious about it. I always had a goal when I went out to shoot, whether it's 20 hits consecutively on a 40, around the catch box 3 times without missing, or so many hits on a 25. I never really shot for fun. I always had a goal and I was always serious about it. And I think that's what's kind of helped me, I guess, because I know a lot of people go out just to have fun, but I always have a goal when I go out and shoot.
Yeah, and I think that's a very well put statement to make because for me, I think, and I think a lot of people, one of the biggest problems people have is overcomplicating things in terms of they take on so much advice and they don't go into their own head and they don't start to kind of realize and learn about the frames and things like that. They want to hit the target so much that they think there's one special trick that's going to fix all their problems. But that's not out there, is it? It's a case of, like you said, it's all those practice sessions, having a goal in mind, setting yourself targets that you need to kind of hit. Excuse the pun, but you need to kind of excel and just get on that railroad of being able to get as good as you can. And I think a lot of people they'll kind of go out and they'll aimlessly. I know I done it as a beginner. I went out for sort of hour and a half, and by an hour as a beginner, my form was going from one thing to another thing to another thing, and in that hour, my elbows were in different places, my ankle was in different places, and I didn't really understand what I was doing. But it sounds as though you kind of knew what you were doing because not many people go out and do short bursts of practice like you do. Because when they do get that bug, they want to be out as much as possible and shoot for as long as possible. So, was it something that someone said that made you realize that's the way to go, or is there any sort of history in marksmanship that's allowed you to do that? Because, the best people I've spoken to have always said that short and sweet is the best way to practice.
No, I guess I just kind of picked that up. Having a young daughter, I would find time to go out and shoot a little bit, and then come inside. Spend time with her, do stuff I need to do around the house, and then, I'm always thinking about it. So I have enough time. Okay, I'm gonna go out there for 15 minutes and shoot. But once I really got into shooting every day and tracking, as I was getting better or worse, I realized that if I shot more than 20 or 30 minutes, I would start picking up bad habits. I would not be as consistent. So once I realized that was starting to happen, I'd kind of come back in, and resettle, regroup, and then go back out later. Because I did have when I first started long draw, I shot clay at first, like most people do. And when I went to steel, I had fork hit issue for like 2 weeks. I was just hitting the fork every single time, and I went outside and I took slow-mo video of myself from the side and watched frame by frame by frame until I could figure out what I was doing wrong. And I think taking at it, that aspect, I think really helped me because I broke down my shot sequence by every step, just to figure out what was going on.
And that is a great bit of advice in terms of recording yourself. I done it as a beginner, not to kind of show off or do trick shots. It was purely to see what my form was looking like because sometimes it's hard to visualize what you're doing in terms of your stance. Are you kind of bending too much? Is your elbow actually high enough? Is it dropping? There's all these different things that you can't really see when you're shooting. So, that's a very, very good point. And in terms of, you mentioned there long draw, short draw, using clay, steel ammos and things like that. Within, the small space of time that you have been shooting, has it been difficult to try these variations of things? Because, I've been in the hobby sort of 3 years now and I've used bigger ammo, smaller ammo. I tried long draw for a very small period of time. Really couldn't get on with it. I tried PFS, really couldn't get on with it. And I like to stick to what I like. For you, what was it? What was it like doing that fast track kind of stuff to find out exactly what worked for you?
So I kind of started off like everybody else. I did a short draw with clay, and then I went to 8 millimeter. I shot 8 mil for I guess around a month, and then I went straight into long draw. I shot long draw clay for I don't know, probably 4 or 5 weeks. And then that's when I realized that it started to make me have bad habits once I switched over to steel. So once I switched over to 9.5, I have not shot anything else. I don't even shoot clay anymore. Um, I shoot 9.5 still, and that's it. Besides 8 millimeter for pickle fork, which I'm trying to figure out, but I'm terrible at. So yeah, once I picked it up in February, I really haven't shot anything else. I've just specifically shot long draw 3/8.
And what about frame wise? Because, there's so many different variations of frames in terms of fork widths, whether you're going to be using the pinch or the brace. And there's different designs. You get your handed frames, non-handed frames, clip frames, wrap and tuck, all these different variations, which a lot of people kind of veer towards once they kind of spend that time trying out all these different frames. And like I mentioned, on your back wall there, you have a number of different frames. Um, Talk to me a little bit about the process of choosing what frames were for you and which ones maybe weren't so much.
Um, so I've always pretty much shot 90s because that's what everybody has. I got a few like 87, 88 mils. But for the longest time since February, I only shot 80, 87 to 90. But I never, still to this day, I've never picked up a frame and shot it more than like 2 days in a row. I shoot a different frame, 1 to 2 frames every day. I'm always changing frames, always changing up. And even going up the ECST, I never shot one frame. I just would pick up a frame, whether it was a new frame or that I got or something. I'd always just pick it up and shoot it for that day, and then the next day I go find something else that I want to shoot. Even for ECST for the events, I had like 6 or 7 frames with me. I just grabbed one for the event. So that's one thing that I don't do. I never picked up a single frame and worked with just one frame. I kind of just grab a frame and go.
And that's incredible, really, because the majority of people say to try and stick to one frame. There's one side of it which is as long as it's the same sort of fork width, it's not really going to do too much to the shot because it's not going to impact the shot. You got to have the comfortability of the frame. Maybe the sort of the reference point on the frame might veer depending on the frame itself. The fork tips sometimes that can impact things. Whether they're slope tips, that can help if you're shooting straight wrist and things like that. So it's quite impressive that you've managed to do that. But are there any frames that you kind of prefer over others, or is it just a case of you're picking them up and you're just enjoying them and you're able to shoot them all just as well as each other?
So when I first started, I kind of like the bigger ergo type of frame, style frames. But now that I've been shooting more, I prefer a thinner frame, like something from Tim Henry or like a taking shots. I really like something thin, and slope tips is my go-to. I kind of shoot everything, but a thin frame now is what I prefer.
And what about bands? Because, and I've mentioned this a load of times in the videos that I've done, whether it been previous podcasts. For me, my biggest fix was when it came to making my own bands and fine-tuning my bands to where they need to be. And that was quite a long process, even when I don't know whether you remember, there was a BSB, so the Burning Skull brand. So they used to be extremely popular, and a lot of people, certainly here in the UK, were using the BSBs. And then all of a sudden, I received a roll, and it looked very shiny. It looked very different. But I thought, I'll give it a go. And I made it to my own length. I made it to the taper that I used to use it at. And rather than kind of stopping here, maybe drawing there, it was kind of I could have shot a long draw. It was very, very different. And I had to go through the process then of trying to figure out how to use it. And I really couldn't get on with it. So I got 5 different rolls of band. Um, and I had to trial them all out, and that took a long time to kind of figure out what I liked. And I ended up landing on the Cyan Precise, which is, in my opinion, the closest thing to the old BSB. Again, going back to your short period of time within the hobby, talk to me a little bit about how you found your way around the bands, the tapers, the lengths, and things like that.
So when I shot short draw, I kind of just shot 20 to 12, because that's kind of what everybody recommends. But once I went into long draw, I actually had Leon send me I actually just wanted to try one of his pouches, and he sent me a long draw band set, and I was like, you know what, let's try this long draw, and it was 16 to 10.45, and I shot 16 to 10.45, Olympus green and Omega white, for pretty much the whole time I was shooting clay long draw. And then, I heard everybody shooting 20 to 12 or 22 to 14. So I jumped on 22 to 14.45, shot that long draw for a long time, and eventually moved up to point 0.5, which I shoot 0.45 and point 0.5 now. But I really didn't experiment with too many tapers. I experimented with 20 to 12, 22 to 12, and 22 to 14. and I kind of like a heavier draw for me personally than a lighter draw. So I just always stuck with the 22 to 14. I was shooting Omega White for a while. I tried the BSB White. I wasn't a fan of it, and I've been shooting precise cyan now for probably the last 2 or 3 months. So I'm pretty much stuck on cyan now.
Nice, nice. And then, with with everything that you've done so far, you've also created a YouTube channel. Tell me a little bit about that. Was that a case of um, you wanted to add content and help other people? Was it a case of you wanted to be part of the YouTube community? What made you come out with making your own sort of content?
Originally, I didn't plan on making any videos and stuff. I originally made it just so I could have a name in the YouTube community, because I was always on the lives or chatting with people. So I originally made it just for that. But then I started doing, a few trick shot stuff. I do a bunch of shorts, and that's because for me that was, I never really shot for fun. So during the week at home, I was always shooting spinners, but that was my 2 to 3 times a week that I would get out in the woods or get out and do something fun. So I enjoyed making those. But yeah, I've done a few longer videos. That's something I kind of want to work on now is just to get people into the hobby because when you first start, it's a lot, and it's really not as hard as what it seems to be. But I don't know. It's not. It's not. I guess what I'm saying is, it seems like it's a lot when you first get in, but once you get in, it's really not as bad as what it is.
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest things is just the practice. And it sounds like you really kind of found that niche for how to practice and have good practice because you can have bad practice, where you kind of drill into yourself a load of bad habits and things like that. But it sounded like you went about everything the right way. And it sounds like you got the bug and you done everything right, which is very rare for somebody to come along and do everything right first time. Um, in terms of your future on YouTube, do you see yourself doing anything more than the few shorts and things like that? Do you have any plans to expand on what you're doing?
Yeah, I would love to start making some longer videos, some how tos. I really want to start catering to the people wanting to get into the sport, make it a little bit easier since it's kind of still fresh on me. I haven't been in the game too long, so I feel like it won't be too hard for me to explain to a newer crowd. But one of my goals is really I want to put together a long draw series because when I first started long draw, there was no good long draw content out there. Yeah, people were shooting it, but there was not. It's kind of hard to explain, and that's probably why there's not very many good how tos out there. But that's one of the goals.
And that's a nice idea. I think a lot of the older videos, especially here in the UK, you got Gamekeeper John and Chris Graffin of Catapult Carnage, Wayne Martin, guys like that who, they're all short draw. They're all, really, really good advice and is where a lot of people started. But like you said, there are a few kind of tutorials out there, but I've not seen anything that's kind of, made it as popular as what maybe it could be. What is it about long draw for you that you kind of like? I know you were mentioning you getting maybe four kits and things like that on the short draw, but what was it about long draw? Because it seems as though the people that go to long draw, they just stick at it and they absolutely love it and they never even think about shooting short draw again. So what is it about you that kind of got you hooked on long draw?
I think what originally got me is just like the cool aspect of it, right? When you first get in, you see guys shooting long draw, it's like, man, I want to try that. But once you really start shooting, I don't know what it is. I know having a fixed anchor should be more consistent, but I'm way more consistent long draw. Still today, I still shoot short draw every now and then. But I found consistency rather quick when I picked up long draw and the speed. I mean, especially like shooting woods course because before ECST, I'd never shot with anybody else besides the guy that showed me. So seeing all the people shoot was pretty wild. But you could notice in the woods course that long draw has a pretty big advantage in the woods course.
And what do you think that's contributed to? Is it the range of targets, the distance on the targets, and things like that, maybe?
Yeah, I think you just notice not as much drop off. I think that guys prefer a lighter band set because they're used to shooting 10 meters, and when you start really trying to reach out, they're having to really hold over pretty high. Where I'm barely having to hold over at all.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I mean, I use 8 mil steels. I use a 2014 taper. and my bands are near maxed out, so I get very little drop from my shot. However, you see a lot of guys and they might be using 1610s on a short draw, or, those kind of tapers and those kind of bands. A lot of them are purpose built for the competition shooting. If you look at the Chinese and the way that they shoot and the way their bands are set up, they're so thin that you probably are going to have difficulties with those longer range shots. I mean, we even seen one video where this lady's shooting at 10 meters and she's judging the drop, so the ball's actually arcing onto the target at 10 meters, which is insane because if you then go to 15 meters, you're having to judge the shot so much more and it becomes increasingly more difficult. But I think, over here in the UK, I've just come back from Harrogate, and out of the 60 odd shooters, I only seen maybe five, six shooting long draw. Um, I do think, and it's not me saying there's not people here in the UK that shoot long draw, but it's definitely more of a cultural thing to see a lot more guys over in the States shoot long draw, which is quite interesting.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I picked it up, and like I said, I wasn't consistent at first. Of course, it's hard to get into, but once you find that, one thing is I did have target panic a little bit when I shot short draw, and for some reason, when switched over to long draw, that kind of went away because I'm more focused on there's more going on, so that kind of mitigated that target panic for me. So I think that's really what pushed me to keep going with it.
And target panic can be a very big thing. Whether you're just shooting alone or whether you're shooting live, in front of people on YouTube, things like that, or whether you're in a competition, that there's other people watching you. Um, you know, Touching on the competition side of things, and you mentioned there that you hadn't shot in front of anyone other than your buddy that first got you into it. Had you shot live before you had gone to a competition, or was the competition the first time anyone saw you shoot?
I've shot a few co-lives, less than five probably for the tournament, three or four co-lives. Yeah, I get nervous in front of the camera, but I really wasn't nervous at ECST, which I was surprised a little bit during the knockdowns and then the head-to-head finals. But yeah, it wasn't too bad because everybody's having fun. Pretty much everybody. So it was actually not as bad as I thought.
And what was it that drew you towards a competition? Because, I kind of got into the hobby for the same reason as you, it was mainly for the hunting aspect, but I soon fell in love with being able to hit targets and, challenge myself on a regular from consistent hits and things like that. And I never really thought about going to a competition because I wanted this to be non-competitive. I've been in competitive sports most of my life, and this was the one thing I could kind of go into the woods and, like you said, it was that meditation side of things where I could just go and relax. And I really didn't want to go into anywhere and be competitive, but it soon drew me in when I started making friends and seeing the courses and things like that. What was it for you that drew you towards wanting to compete in, especially in such a big event like the ECST?
I'm a, I'm I'm pretty competitive by nature. I love competing, whether it's playing cards or a sport. I really just like competing. I enjoy that aspect of it. But for me, honestly, was to meet everybody was the main reason I wanted to go because I know you chat with these people on a daily basis, and that's what really made me want to go was just to meet everybody that I've been chatting with on a daily basis. And then as I started posting shorts and stuff, people are like, "Oh, you're pretty good. You'd probably do pretty good at ECST. You should try it out." Well, I never realized that. I mean, I knew that I was maybe decent, like mid pack, but I had no idea that I'd end up placing an ECST.
And we're, talking about that and having an idea in mind of where you kind of come in the pecking order. Did you have anything in your mind? You just mentioned there that you're quite competitive. Did you kind of feel like, all right, if I kind of come here, I'll be happy? Did you set yourself a benchmark of how well you wanted to do within the competition?
Realistically, I told myself if I was top 20, I would be happy. So that's kind of what I shot. But and like this is gonna sound bad, not to sound cocky or anything, but as I was at shooting at the practice range, I realized that I was a little bit better than some people. So I was like, well, heck, if I got a chance, let's go for maybe top 10. So I really, I don't know, I took it serious, I guess. Each event, more people were joking around, but I enjoyed it. I really like competing, and it was awesome getting to meet everybody. So yeah, I was super shocked that I was up there at the top.
And I think, there's a lot of different aspects to competitions. A lot of people will say it's purely fun. I go there just for the fun and I'm not competitive. Other people may go there with the mindset of, a serious sport and wanting to come out of it with a trophy, and, they're absolutely devastated if they don't go home with a trophy. I think, for me personally, when I've gone to Harrogate this year, it was to see all the friends that I've made, all the people that I've kind of made friends with online that are going to the event, and I did want to set myself a target because, I've been shooting a while now, and I thought if I can come back with a top five spot or something like that, because I'm not sure how it works in the States, and we can touch on this in a second, but you have to compete in the semi-pro first. So you have semi-pro and then you have the pros. And I'd already been to one competition and I got second place in the semi-pros. So this time round, I was like, I want to come top five. If I can go away with another trophy, which will allow me to complete with the pros next time, that'd be great. And I did really try. I think if people say they go to competitions and they're not bothered about how well they do, I think it's a bit of a lie because, you're spending a lot of money, you're away from your friends and family and things like that, and you're having to take time off work. Why wouldn't you want to go there and achieve something as well as have a good time?
Yeah, exactly.
And, I've asked this question, but I can't quite get a clear picture on it. Can you explain to me a little bit about how the amateur and pro ranks kind of work in the States? Because it's a very much a blurry subject when I kind of try and figure out how that works.
Right. So, and that's what I was kind of confused on because I'd never been to a tournament. But after asking around, there is no rules. The only rule is if you win an amateur division tournament, you can no longer shoot amateur. You have to shoot pro from there on out, I believe. So yeah, there's no rules on who can enter what. I mean, it's kind of a people know who people are. So if you're going to be an amateur division and do really well, they're going to give you shit, the next year, the next tournament. But yeah, it's kind of just free reign unless you win an amateur tournament.
Right, because I think that the whole point of it here in the UK is to give those a chance that's never been to a competition, the opportunity to win something. Because one thing that I've noticed personally is, within the States, you get kind of different winners and people come in different areas of the table quite often. And, Andy last year, who, he went out and won it and he was very new to the sport. You've done it again this year. Whereas in the UK, if you look at the table of who comes where, it's a lot of the time it's the same people right at the top. So I think the reason that those brackets are put in place is so the newer people going into the competitions um, can go out and win a trophy. So you have separate trophies and prizes for the semi-pro and pros. But then as soon as you've placed within two semi-pro tournaments, that's it. You're with the pros. So it was quite tricky for me to find out how it worked over in the States. But you think it's just a case of if you've placed within an amateur once, then you kind of have to go in as a pro.
Yep, that's from what I understand. That's how it is because the what I thought is weird. I mean, is they do it how they do it, but scoring is the same for the pro and the am division. So there's no, I don't know, me personally, there's no reason to go into the amateur ranking because it's all going to be scored the same.
So there's no
Um,
separate prizes for
well,
amateur.
there is separate prizes. Yes, there's like at ECST there was no cash prizes for the amateur division, pro division, top three got money, but there's trophies and they're separated. But actually, as the scoring in the tournament, everything's scored the exact same. So
Yeah,
you
so
got
it's,
some guys in amateur that are above most of the pros.
yeah, so that's the same here. So you scored the same. So the field target course is all scored the same, and it's kind of like the same. I scored better than a bunch of the pros, but because I've not done because I've not completed two places within the semi-pros. I had to be placed as a semi-pro. I wouldn't have won a trophy at pro, quite far off it, but I think I was around 12th overall, and I was third in the semi-pro. So it kind of gives you a little picture of where you're competing at. But you are scored exactly the same. But it's just quite interesting that they're done in that way. It's a little bit different. Um, and as you mentioned there, you surprised yourself a little bit with how well you've done. You mentioned that you stood next to people in the line. You're realizing that you're actually doing quite well compared to other people. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. I don't think it's an ego thing. I think a lot of people have that worry, especially when they go to their first competition, because a lot of people online, you see them doing trick shots, they're never missing, and they're consistently hitting targets, and you're comparing yourself to what looks like perfection, when the reality is everybody misses. And when you go to these competitions and you see some of these bigger names and they are missing, you're kind of thinking, hang on a minute, I'm okay here. Was that the kind of realization that you made early on into the tournament?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you all I knew was what I've seen online or how I shoot. So yeah, I wasn't trying to say I'm better than anybody. I just realized that kind of where I stacked up, seeing people that I was kind of the same as on the practice range.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not sure whether ECST is the same, but certainly with Harrogate here in the UK, the scoring, for the field target course, rather than think about placements, when I went to this competition, I looked at last year's scoring and I kind of felt like I wanted to kind of get to a certain point. So I knew last year's semi-pro winner scored, and I think it was a 94 or a 96. So that was the semi-pro winner, and then the pro winner I think scored 120. So I kind of knew, I thought I want to be in the 90s because if I'm in the 90s, I'm there with a chance of maybe winning the semi-pro category, and I'm only 20 points behind the winner of the pro. So that's kind of how I thought about it. Is it the same sort of thing? Do you have, I know you have different scoring for different events and you get it all put into one. But could you quite essentially look at the scoring from last year and kind of have an idea of where you're going to come based off that?
We I don't think we really couldn't because they did everything was scored differently this year. So in years past, from my understanding, was on the woods course, it was either hit or miss. This year we did a three shot, which I believe kind of what you guys do. First shot 3 points, second shot 2 points, third then 1 point. So we did that this year in the woods course. And speed shoot this year, it was 10 cans in a minute. And they were, I think each or the last four cans or three cans were different points. This year was 20 cans, all worth 5 points. So that kind of changed that up too. So there was a bunch more points on the board this year, I guess, that were kind of spread out from what I understand from years previous. But um, yeah, so I guess there was really we had no idea kind of where we were gonna stack up at the end of the weekend.
And were there any events that maybe surprised you, or were there any events that you kind of done really well in that you thought you wouldn't? Because for me, the majority of practice that I do is based on hunting, and that's why I felt like I'd done so much better in the field target competition than I did the straight line stuff, because it's extremely rare that I go out and just 10 meter shooting in a straight line. Did you kind of practice for everything, and what sort of events did you really kind of enjoy and surprise yourself in?
The woods course was by far my favorite. The woods course was awesome. But what surprised me was the speed shoot. I actually I got the most out of anybody, which is super crazy. I don't really like speed shooting. I don't practice it much, but 2 to 3 weeks before leaving for ECST, that's all I shot was a speed shoot because I knew that there was going to be a lot of points left on the board if you didn't do well on the speed shoot. So I did practice a lot that leading up to it. 25-yard paper shot was fun too, but knockdowns was where it's at, and that's what I mostly shoot is 10 meters. I'll get out to do shorts every now and then and shoot a bunch of random distances and shoot random stuff. But I mostly shoot 10 meters.
And when it comes to the closing side of things of ECST, do you kind of know where you are in the pecking order? Do they have the scores kind of live and ready, or do you have to kind of wait till the end to figure out where you've come?
You kind of have to wait to the end. I kind of added mine up, so I kind of knew where I was, and other people were talking about scores. So you can kind of judge that way, but there's no way to really tell until it's announced, unless you ask around and kind of figure out where everybody's at.
So did you know that you were going to be placed, up until that point when they called your name out? Did you have a fair idea of where you were going to be?
I I thought I would be maybe top five because I asked a couple of really good shooters that were up there, kind of where their score was, and I knew I was kind of above around the 360 number. So I knew that I was kind of up there, but I had no idea I would be top three now.
Okay. So obviously, you went out and won, and there's been a little bit of controversy, and I actually feel quite bad for you because it's kind of overshadowed your achievement. What you've been able to do in such a short space of time is really, really incredible, and I don't think that's said enough. So I just want to say now, like, what you've done is absolutely incredible. And I'm not going to go into the details of all the things that's happened. Um, but talk to me a little bit about, the conversation you had when you realized that you'd actually won ECST, because obviously you didn't get to have that experience there and then. But talk to me about how that all worked and how that come about.
All right. So I kind of had heard, people talk. So I kind of had an idea of what was going on after the award ceremony. So I already kind of had an idea maybe that would happen, but I didn't know the true story of what was happening. So after things kind of settled down and we got back home, people talk. So I already had an idea that I would become number one. But yeah, it was just a crazy experience because it kind of sucked because I didn't get to experience that. Um, you know, getting the number one trophy. But it is what it is, and I think that the community handled it and Will handled it, and everybody handled it the best that could be handled. Because nobody expects things like that to happen. So
And I think you could probably look at it from both ends of the spectrum. Yes, it's great to get a trophy and have your name out there in front of all those people, but it still, in my opinion, shouldn't take away from what you've accomplished. I know it is nice having that recognition there and then, but you know, for yourself, and earlier on in the podcast, you were mentioning about how you're quite competitive and you always wanted to set yourself goals and things like that. I think sometimes, taking a step back and realizing actually you've done it, and yeah, you didn't get it done in the way that the majority of people get it, but you've done it. You've accomplished that. Um, moving forward, and regardless of what side we take, whether it was the kind of cheating or whether it was the health condition, whatever side people are on, what do you think moving forward that the ECST can do? And this is not me putting the blame on ECST because I've seen some people say that oh, it's not the. I'm not saying that at all, but I want to get my head around it because when I go and think about how the events are in the UK here, you have a member of the board going round you on the hunters course, so they're completely impartial. They don't do their round with you and they're scoring you. So they'll be the UKSA, so they'll be the guys taking your scores. And when you do your straight line stuff, they're stood there with clipboards and it's done there and then. Everyone gets together at one time. So we're probably out for 2, 3 hours doing the straight line eventing, and that's done in one go. So that, regardless of whether it, like I said, it was someone trying to cheat or whether it was a health condition, the refereeing would have been done there and there. And again, this is not me bashing ECST. And a lot of people have said, we should have integrity and all that sort of stuff. And, I agree. But every sport, everything that's done competitively has a referee or a marshal or a steward. So what is it about ECST that maybe they could do a little bit better next time round?
I think after this, because I think this really tested the waters. I don't know if anything like this has ever happened, at a big event like ECST, but I think it shows that the sport is growing quick, and it shows what needs to be worked on for the future to make things a little bit better. And I don't know if we could have you know judges do everything because it's kind of all based on integrity. But I would like to see maybe shooters not get to hold their card all weekend, and either for each event go up and go up to the clubhouse and have to pull a designated referee or whatever you want to call it, marshal, to come down to shoot for score, or have some type of drop box in the woods course every 5 or 10 targets, or maybe every 15. You have to drop your scorecard in from the last 15 targets, so there'll be no questioning moving on. That would be an issue.
So is that how it works? And you hold on to your scorecard the whole time, and then at the end they collect everyone's scorecard and they tally everything up. Is that right?
Yep. So you get your scorecard when you register. So you get your paper for your 25-yard shoot, and it's pretty much a packet. So you have your wood scoring on the front, and then you have can little designs that you mark in, and then you have your knockdowns scored too. So you get a whole packet, and it was due at 7 o'clock Saturday afternoon. So the only thing that was actually was the knockdowns. You know, you shot them in front of everybody, and they had designated judges. But the rest of it's pretty much on um, helping people have integrity. You know, and
Yeah, and
that's it for sure.
I'm very much about that, and the way that I see our community and the way that I've seen it from day one is just a bunch of great guys who share the love for the same hobby. And, sometimes I don't even think it's about integrity. I just feel, and, again, this is not me bashing ECST. Obviously, a lot of guys got the same mentality. I've seen a lot of comments on this saying things like, you guys are taking it too serious and things like that. I don't think it's a case of taking something serious. I think when you spend your hard-earned money and you spend time away from family and things like that, you should be able to go somewhere and things should go, the way they should. And, like I said, at Harrogate, it's someone goes around you. So I think, say there's six groups, they take six people around with them. And then at the end, those six people go round together and they get their scores done. Um, but of course, that's done on a volunteer basis, and it's always very difficult. It just surprised me a little bit with how big ECST. I mean, everybody here in the UK knows what ECST is. They know it's the biggest competition over there. So, it's done the rounds. It's been around for a long time. The biggest, most popular faces within the slingshot community have always attended ECST, and it's just a shame, like something that like this has happened really because it does tarnish the community, and whether people believe it's one individual, whether they believe it's the guys who are running it, or whatever people want to believe, it's just a sad day for slingshots in reality, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Hopefully, though, we can move forward, with this, and who knows, next year there might be things that'll change, or there'll be certain written rules and things like that that kind of allow people to go out and shoot the way they want to shoot. But again, it's very difficult to talk about this sort of stuff, without going into the nitty and gritty. There's people here that can't speak for themselves and things like that. And again, people will always have their opinions on one side or the other. But what I really kind of want to put out there is how well you've done, and what you've accomplished is really, really remarkable for the short space of time that you've been in it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm just as shocked as everybody else. I had no idea that I would that I was really with the top dogs out there. Now next tournament might be totally different because being now that I've gone and shot a tournament, I'm really enjoying shooting for fun now. I'm shooting pickle fork. I'm shooting a few other things that I didn't shoot before. So it's like creating another spark in me to really enjoy it more than be serious all the time.
And do you have any more competitions on the horizon, or any ones you got your eyes on attending?
I think I'm going to try to make HHST this year, Hocking Hills. I'd like to make AIM, but they're only a month apart, so I don't know for sure if I'll be able to swing it. But I'm hoping to make one of the two.
Awesome. So as always, I have questions for you. So I have a whole bunch. I have some which were mailed into me, and then I've got a load that were sent in on Facebook. Um, but just before I go ahead and do that, I'm just going to drop the link into the members chat, um, and let them know that they can come in and ask their questions. Right, so if there's any members, they're going to come in and they're going to come in and ask their questions. All right, so the first one I had sent in by Carlos Pena. So he says, dig your podcast, you're awesome. Hopefully it's not too late. My question for Weston. One, how does he keep all the women off his tail now he's champ? And what is his method of becoming so accurate?
First question, I don't know. I try not to. But second is, and I don't know, I think it's just constant practice. And if you really want to be consistent, is shoot small targets, get your grouping down, and shoot with a purpose. I think is the best thing that I have is every shot, calculate every shot, and go back over your shot sequence for every single shot, whether you just miss left or just miss right. Ask yourself why. Why did I miss left? Why did I miss right? Instead of just taking another shot.
That's a great bit of advice because I think that's a lot. People try and just automatically correct that mistake in hitting the shot the next time round, right? That you miss a shot and you think, oh well, I'll just take another one. Whereas they don't take that pause and think, all right, I was a little bit high. What do I need to change? Was my elbow dropping? Was my anchor maybe a little bit lower and things like that? So that's a very, very good point. So the next one is by Josh Hicks. You might have to explain this one to me. How does it feel being named Crockett and having a native Hicks on your heels?
That's yeah. So Crockett is my last name, and he's referring to Davy Crockett, and he's Native American Indian, so his last name's Hicks. So it's a pun on Davy Crockett and his native roots, which is hilarious. I already messaged him about it.
Got it. So the next one is by Rex Spurlock Jr., who I believe he was at ECST.
Yep.
After you started messing around with a sling, what was the shot that you hit that kicked you down the rabbit hole? So was there one particular shot that kind of made you really kind of think, this is for me?
Um. Yeah, I saw him answer that, and I really thought about it, and I don't really have one that really sparked it because I immediately had the spark, when I picked it up and started shooting. But I think the first time that I hit a 40 back to back is what really, really got me going.
Yeah, nice. And I think sometimes it's the consistency because anyone can make a trick shot and make it look very, very good. But when you're doing something consistently, that's what it kind of proves, you're really well within there. I think,
Sorry, I don't know
no, no,
what
you're all
happened
good.
there.
For me, I remember I hit 9 out of 10 on a 25 mil. And to me, that was way more impressive than any of the trick shots or any tiny targets. I've hit an 8 mil ball with an 8 mil. Um, but for me, hitting that 25, I didn't quite get to 10, and it's not something I practice all that often. But when I hit 9 out of 10 on 25, I was like, all right, that's ultra consistent. And like you said, hitting things back to back. That's a very good point because not a lot of people say that. They'll say, "Oh, it was this shot at 20 meters," or "It was this tiny little target that I had." But actually doing something consistently is a lot more impressive than doing something one time.
Right. Yeah, and I think a lot of people, if they want to know kind of where their shooting ability is go out, pick a spinner, and shoot 20 shots on a 25 or 50 shots on a 40, and that will tell you kind of where you stack up. That'll show your consistency. Because anybody
Hmm.
can hit something small 1 out of 10 times, but shooting it 8 to 9 times out of 10 is where you start getting consistent.
For sure. So the next one is by Hunter James. Make a shout out to Hunter. So I think again, bit of a strange one. I think this must be like an American thing. But if Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear and Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair, then Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't fuzzy, was he? Is
No, he
that an
wasn't
inside
fuzzy.
thing or is that just Hunter?
No, I think that's just Hunter being Hunter. Hunter's hilarious and a really cool guy. I enjoyed hanging out with Hunter at ECST.
Awesome. So the next one's by Paul Weber. Shout out to Paul, Slingy Nerd. If you could change one thing in the community, what would it be? And did you secretly enjoy seeing him topless?
If I could change one thing in the community, so one thing that I noticed right off the bat when going to ECST, because I'm in the Facebook groups and I'm in the YouTube community, so I only kind of see that side. And there's a bunch of other people that aren't really on social media. But the one thing that I noticed when I arrived at ECST was everybody's clicked up. Yeah, like everybody's there to enjoy one thing, but you have a bunch of little subgroups that kind of don't a lot of them intermingle, but a lot of them, most of them stay to themselves, which was an eye opener for me. So I think to have the community all more together. I know people naturally, it's just a human thing to want to click up and get with, the people that you're closer with. But yeah, I don't know if I would change that. But yeah, that was one of the things that shocked me at ECST for sure.
And I think, that's a good point. So I know with ECST, a lot of people stay in rooms, don't they? I think there is camping, but also a lot of people kind of go to rooms, or is it just like Airbnbs and things like that?
Yeah, so most people, I would say most people camp. Some people get hotels and stuff. I personally, we got a big house, and 7 of us stayed together in Airbnb. I think for me, it's easier because I don't want to go buy camping gear when I get there because I have to fly. So I
Sure.
think most of the people that fly in usually stay in a hotel or get an Airbnb.
Sure, and I think that's the thing about being where you are, and being a vast range of sort of different states all kind of coming together. It's difficult to get all that equipment with you. But even here in the UK, you do have your small groups of people. So, for example, I camped out with 4 of my buddies, but then a 2 minute walk, there's another 5 guys, and so as much as like maybe we spent most of the evenings by ourselves cooking food and doing things like that, throughout the day when you're not doing the competitions, you're kind of mingling, you're kind of going up, and there was time where I went up and I spent maybe 4 hours shooting at spinners with another 15 guys, maybe 5 of them I've met or seen before and 10 that I've just met there and then, and we're kind of shooting together. And then you go up a bit more and you see another group of guys which you've kind of seen on Facebook but never met, and you're kind of hanging around with them. And then you're going back to your camp to kind of go back to sleep or have a drink or whatever you're doing. So that camping aspect really does allow you to kind of mingle a lot more. So even though we had our small little groups, like you said, because we were all camping in the same place, we got to kind of mingle a lot more than what you probably would if you were kind of going for the day and then going back to your hotel or your Airbnb in the evening. So
Right.
it must be difficult when you can't get all that equipment with you, because I'm sure if everyone was camping, you'd probably have that opportunity to do it a little bit more.
Right. Yeah, I definitely realized this last tournament that you miss a lot not camping because a bunch of stuff went on after we went home, and I'm kind of bummed that we missed it. So I'd say next year I'm gonna make something work so I can camp for
Nice.
sure.
So the next one is what about seeing Paul topless?
Oh yeah, yeah, Paul, his tramp stamp and everything, letting it all hang out in the Airbnb. Paul was just hilarious because we're downstairs and it's hot, right? I mean it's cold. We all got hoodies on, and he walks down with his shirt off, telling everybody how hot it is in here. We're like, man, we all got hoodies and jeans on. So yeah, Paul's crazy, but he's a great guy.
Nice. So this one's by Kevin Lillard. Of all your ECST roommates, who was the best looking, strongest, coolest, and most talented?
Um, I'm
The
just not
questions
gonna.
aren't always
I'm
like
not.
this. I just want.
I'm not gonna pick anybody. They were all cool.
Nice. So the next one's by Chris Foster, who was actually one of the guys that I camped with at Harrogate. So big shout out to Chris. What is your dream within the sport? What are the things that you hope to see in the future of catapults? And if you could shoot at anything, what would it be?
So sorry. What was the first one?
So, what is your dream within the sport, or and things that you'd like to see in the future?
Dreams in the sport. I really like the aspect of getting more people involved and really getting kids involved, which is they did a great job at ECST, but I really want to get the younger generation involved. Because I mean, I'm one of the younger guys, being 27 years old. Mostly everybody's older. So I think getting a younger generation and shooting would be cool. What do I see? Sorry, what was the other one?
So, what do you see for the future? Which, I mean, that answer kind of covers both, doesn't it? I mean, if you prepare today, then you're going to have a better tomorrow,
Right.
in terms of introducing new shooters, and we're trying to do our best here in the UK as well. We've had a lot of negative things in the press with the hobby, but and I said it as soon as I come home. I said Harrogate is undersold in terms of there's not a lot of promotion, there's not a huge bunch of people talking about it. But when you go there, it's such a good time. It's such a beautiful place to go. And, if a lot of younger people seen the opportunity of being able to go to a competition like that and have as much fun as we did, it would definitely help grow the hobby.
For sure.
He also asks if you could shoot at anything, what would it be? So I imagine that's based on whether it be a can, a flipper, small game, or if you could shoot at anything, what would it be?
Anything. I enjoy hunting a lot. Of course, hunt small game with a slingshot is super fun. But I love shooting leather spinners. I shoot leather spinners more than anything.
Nice. Is that for the noise aspect of it?
Yeah, give
The
you
whack?
something, some type of feedback instead of just aimlessly shooting a spinner.
Nice. So the next one is by Rick Roberts. If you had one target or shooting challenge to shoot exclusively, what would it be?
Probably a 25 mil spinner. I shoot a 25. Probably the most out of anything out of the catch box.
Nice. And Andy Mond. Do you feel bad that you were stripped of the chance of being crowned champion in front of everyone at the awards ceremony?
I mean, it was a bummer, yes, because I missed out on that opportunity. But at the end of the day, the community is so cool. I can't tell you how many messages and phone calls and comments and everything from everybody, showing support and congratulating me. So I didn't really lose out. Yes, I lost out, but at the end of it, people still showed their support and stuff. So I'm very thankful for that.
Nice. So the next one's by Kyle Blackman. How did you train for ECST and what is your goal or mindset for each training session?
Hmm. How did I train? I really only shot. I mean, like we talked about earlier, is a 10-meter spinner, and a 10-meter spinners. I always had a goal of 3 times around the catch box. So many hits on certain spinner. I practiced 25-yard shoot a little bit, not too much, but I think what really helps is me going out shooting random stuff at all different distances, high, low. I do that quite a bit too, 3 to 4 times a week. So that's really all I do.
And I think like you're saying that really prepares you for the woods course, doesn't it?
Yeah,
When you're able to do that, because there are people out there that they'll exclusively shoot at 10 meters, and like you said, when you get to the woods course, then nothing's at 10 meters, nothing's level, things are high, things are low, different distances and things like that. So I think what you're saying there, it does allow you to become a little bit more of a versatile shooter in that respect.
for sure. Yeah, that's
So
that's the funnest part to me is going out in the woods and shooting pine cones or shooting sticks or a can on the ground. Just shooting anything that you see.
yeah, and again, it's being able to find those targets, isn't it? A lot of the times, I've gone out with nothing, and I'm hoping I find a can, but sometimes I don't find a can, so I just try and get a group in on a tree, and I'm like, as soon as I've hit a couple of shots, I can see where my shots have landed, and then I'm just trying to group in that area. So there's
Right,
all sorts of different things that you can do to make it fun, and
for
that's the
sure,
beauty of our sport. Really, is something that's pocketable, and you really don't need anything.
for sure, absolutely.
The next one is by Gregorio Anjoa Rivera. Hopefully I said that right. How do you see slingshots as a hobby or a legit sport? And who is your favorite shooter not in the US? Interesting.
How do I see it as a hobby or sport? I think it's whatever you enjoy. I mean, there's a lot of people that really like the competing and the sports side of it, especially since we got NSL coming together. So I think we're going to see a lot more from the sports side of it. But there's way more people that just shoot once a week or once a month in the backyard at a can, and that's cool too. Just whatever floats your boat, I guess.
For sure.
And my favorite outside the U.S. I don't know. Probably Adam. I stayed with Adam. He's in Australia.
Nice.
So Adam's a
Nice.
cool dude.
And we've got one from Caitlin Hicks. How much of an impact has Caitlin Hicks had on your success?
Um, Quite a bit, I guess. Caitlin's really cool. So. Caitlin and Josh are awesome.
Nice. So the second one is from Josh. So he says this is a real one. What keeps you reaching in the sport of slingshots, and what advice do you have for others looking to do the same?
Keeps me reaching. I think the community really. I honestly don't know if I would have stayed as serious or committed into it if it wasn't the great people that are part of the community, you know. So I think that's what keeps me reaching. I think all the friendly competitions, the bullshitting and back and forth is what keeps me going.
It is a really good place to be. Even when we were out competing, everybody's kind of encouraging each other. We were in a group where the majority of us were, in the semi-pro category, and these are our competitors, but we were all kind of egging each other on and wanting each other to do well. There was a bit of
Right.
bullshit kind of going back and forth just for fun, but the majority of it, everyone kind of wants you to do well, even though you're competing with each other.
For sure, absolutely.
So the next one is by Jordan Smothers. What are you bringing to the sport that sets you apart from others?
Um, I honestly don't think I'm bringing anything different than anybody else. I think I'm just obsessive and I went a little overboard. So I don't think I'm any different than anybody else, honestly.
Nice. So we've got one of our Sling Den members that's
Double
just
D.
joined us. We've got Double D's here with us,
What
so he's
up?
come on to ask the question. Big shout out, D's. Thanks for joining us, man. What is
What's
your
going on,
question
guys?
for Weston?
Yeah, man. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you good.
Sweet. I wasn't sure how to join this thing here, but I got it now. First of all, Benji, congrats on the Harrogate, man. I don't know if you guys touched base on that at all, but damn nice shooting there, man. Keep it up, dude.
We
Thank you,
didn't.
man.
Thank you. I mean, congratulations, Benji.
That's
Thanks, guys.
awesome. And Weston, congrats too, man. You shot your ass off, dude. You're a badass shooter out there, and I'm glad to see you got it, man. That's super cool, dude.
I appreciate it. At least I had one person believe it in me. You always told me, but I didn't believe it.
Yep, I called it, man. I kept saying champ number one.
I
Well,
appreciate it.
I'm glad you went there. I'm glad I got to meet you, man. You're a cool dude, and it was cool chilling with you. And I hope to do it again at some point, man.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. It was great to meet you, and hopefully you'll be at the next one. You plan on going to Hawken Hills?
I don't think I'm gonna make it just because of work stuff.
Right.
I usually only get to one of these tournaments a year, so we'll see how it goes next year.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, we'll definitely see you at ECST next year. Then hopefully it ain't so rainy, huh?
Right on, man. Yeah, how about it? That'd be nice. So I missed all the stuff that you've already gone over. So if it's already been said, then I'll just pass or whatever. But two things I wanted to know kind of is I thought that you had mentioned something along the lines of you were into archery beforehand. Was that true? Did you
A
used to shoot
little
bow and
bit,
arrows?
a little bit. Not very seriously. I did it just for hunting. But I didn't really practice or take it that serious. Shoot a couple times a month before deer season to get ready. But no, I never did any competition or really think other than hunting or in the backyard a little bit.
Right on. So reason I asked that question is when you shoot slingshots, do you feel like that helped you at all? Just or did you shoot slingshots before and then kind of bounce back and forth?
I definitely think archery does help. It helps in a lot of different aspects. But I never know. I mean, I shot a couple of wrist rockets a little bit as a kid, but I really only picked up a sling in December or end of November, beginning of
Right.
December time frame.
Right on, man. It's pretty amazing to see somebody, start off so soon and make it so far. That's really cool to me. It shows a lot of dedication. Shows a lot of willing to just keep going and keep moving forward. You got a badass slingshot collection back there, I see too. So you're fully involved in this. One second question I had is your shorts that you post sometimes, and I've obviously seen you shoot in person too, so I know it's not just like YouTube editing or whatever. But when you're shooting like tiny stuff, what really goes through your head? Like, are you like do you point and shoot straight at that like point of aim, or are you like going through something in your mind like visualizing? Like, is it a mental thing for you, or is it just repetitive over and over? Or how do you get down to being that good?
Um, and it's really hard to explain because a lot of people ask me, but I don't really have a reference on my frame that I aim with. I mean, like I could go out in the backyard and shoot a 40, and where most people aim will be 3 inches to the left of the 40. I really let my pouch hand control what I'm doing, so I kind of my frame hand kind of just does what my pouch hand is telling it to do. But I think it's all done in my brain. I don't really think about it. But when it comes to small stuff, I squint one eye, so I watch my trajectory all the time. So I kind of imagine that trajectory, and that's kind of how I hit small stuff because I'm pretty blind. I can't see most of it. Um, so that's what I do. I guess I just imagine the trajectory of what it's gonna do. I guess I don't know.
I think that's a lot of people. More and more when you get down to it, it seems like it's a lot of just doing it. It's
Right.
kind of weird. But I just wanted your viewpoint on it to see if there's like a specific. Do you breathe a certain way? Do you always like just focus on that target, and the ball hitting it, or if there's something in your
Right.
brain actually going on?
Yeah. No, and I don't. That's what I was talking to Jordan the other day. Is like I don't want to go too crazy, but instead of what people are shooting, I want to know people's shot sequence, what they're thinking, what they're going through when they shoot, because I don't think like I don't know, it's hard to explain. But all I focus on when I'm shooting is pressure in my front hand, pressure in my rear hand, and then I push and pull at the same time, and then it releases. Every shot's a release. I don't tell myself, all right, now shoot, release, go. I just keep pushing pressure until it slips.
Right on.
Um,
I
so
guess everyone's sort of instinctive in a way. I know you get the pure instinctive shooters, but I get what you're saying because for me, I use my bands like a barrel and I kind of move and I kind of know, again, my shots aren't right on the fork, so my reference isn't my fork. But when my bands are aligned, I kind of know in my head when I need to release, and it's automatic. It's not a case of all right now. It's kind of like it's all one motion. It all just kind of happens at once. Once my brain knows that's where I need to be to release. So I think a lot of it is to do with that instinct of all right, I know what I'm doing, and it's like an automatic kind of trigger that goes off in your brain.
right.
Very well said, man. Well, I won't hold you up anymore. Thanks for having me on, guys, and
Yeah.
congrats once again to both of you. You're both top shooters, and keep it up, man.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Steve.
Dees.
Thanks for
Thanks for
jumping
joining
on.
us. Really appreciate it. Hopefully catch you soon. Take care, man. Big shout out to Dees there, and if anyone else wants to come on to the podcast and ask their questions in person, hit the join button down the bottom, and that'll allow you to be entered into the chat where I send up all the links to ask your questions. So we'll carry on with the questions that we had, and this one's by Laurie. So big shout out to Laurie. What slingshot frame styles and widths have you shot, and which ones do you want to try next year? So obviously we know we've covered you delving into the intricacies of different frames and things like that. But is there any frames out there that you've not shot that you think you'd like to have a go of?
So funny, I'd even bring it up in this. But before ECST, I shot at 85 maybe once or twice. And for some reason at ECST, I'm just like, I'm going to shoot knockdowns and gap shoot at 85. So I picked up an 85 and I gap shot an 85 during knockdowns and head to head this year. And I don't know, I kind of really like shooting 85. So I think I really want to focus on maybe shooting 85 and under, see what happens.
Nice. Um, so the next one is, I think have we had that one, or was that a second question? It's a second question by Kevin Lillard. After winning ECST as a newcomer, what are some of the areas that you know you need to improve on next year?
Definitely knockdowns. And nerves. Nerve was one. The nerves got me big time in the knockdowns. Um, yeah, I think knockdowns, and I could always do better at speed shooting a 25-yard shot.
Nice. I think the speed shooting's always the one that gets people. It's the one that I was worried about most. Ours is slightly different, so rather than cans, you have three targets, a camera. It might be like a 30, a 40, and a 50, and it's whoever can knock them down the quickest. So it's just boom, boom, boom. And I think the winner this year was Richard Rogers. He done it in around 11 seconds. So it's it's different to yours, but it's still the same thing, and I'm the same as you. I don't really see the need in speed shooting. If I'm out hunting, it's very slow. It's very kind of, you get one shot and then your quarry's gone.
Right.
If you're doing the field target course, you don't need to rush. You can take your time. If you're doing the knockdowns, like a normal knockdown, or whether you're doing the step back or something, you're still able to take your time. But for me, speed shooting is just a big no-no. I really don't enjoy it. I took part, but I really, really struggled with it.
Yep, I'm the same as you. Just for me, it's not practical. I don't shoot it unless I have to for tournaments. For me personally, I'd rather get rid of speed shooting and have some moving targets.
Yeah,
Personally,
that's a great idea. The next one's by Jose Guerrero. If you are less than a year in when it comes to slingshots, I'm personally a little burnt out when it comes to the hobbyist side. Do you see in the foreseeable future think you'll ever get burnt out, or will the love always be 100%?
I'm sure it'll. I'm sure I'll get burned out getting new frames and stuff. I'm already starting to want to smallen or less my collection. Get rid of a bunch of stuff. But yeah, I think you could get burnt out quick, especially shooting like I was. I was pretty burnt out going into ECST. I'd even shoot the week before ECST. And now that I'm actually finding that spark again and the love to want to shoot again, so yeah, it definitely can happen.
And I think, there's so many aspects of the hobby. And I think you can get burnt out in all sort of different areas, like you said there, with your collection. So for the last at least a year, well, I'd probably say in the last 16 months, I've shot exclusively two frames. I've kind of had a backup if I'm playing around or making a short or something. But if I'm actually going out and I'm doing a bit of hunting or I'm actually trying to practice properly, I've just stuck to two frames. Whereas in the beginning, that love of getting a new frame all the time and trying out new things, that's gone for me. I don't want to try out new bands. It's actually a hindrance. I don't want to, if a new band comes on the market, I don't want to try it. The only reason I've changed because the one that I was using stopped working because it was, the formula was different and the band was different. But I think that aspect of it, of being brand new and wanting to try all these, great, wonderful things, I think the aspect of it for me has gone a little bit. And I know what I like now. And, I think for me, it's a case of, I know I can shoot, and it's just a case of keeping up that standard and trying to improve it as much as I can before I go to the next competition.
Right. Yep, that's kind of where I'm at. I've been stuck on the same latex. I can't blame you. Cyan's amazing
Yeah,
latex.
there's a really, really
Um,
good band, and I've sworn by it, and I've sent people slabs here in the UK that want to try it out, purely because I just think it's a fantastic band. It really is.
yep.
The next one's by Luke Stroud. Have you ever shot short draw, and what do you like about shooting long draw? So obviously we've already touched on this a little bit, but talk a little bit about short draw and what your experience is with that.
Yeah. I started off short draw, shot it for I don't know, maybe a month and a half, 2 months. But like I talked about earlier, I got to the point where I got pretty consistent, decent at it, and then I picked up that weird kind of target panic, like pushed release, and I don't know, and then it just all went downhill for short draw. So I picked up long draw, yeah, and I still shoot short draw now. I don't have the target panic anymore, so I might dive a little bit more into short draw.
Nice. So the next one's by Jesus G. Ramirez. What's your dream slingshot maker, colors, materials, specs? So if you could have anyone make you up a slingshot in any way, what would it be?
Um, Anybody. I don't know. A really cool carbon headhunter from Hunter at Taking Shots was probably what I want the most right now.
Nice. Nice. Good choice. So the next one is by Moan Wallet. What bands do you use? Which I know we just covered. So it's the Cyan Precise, and what thickness do you go with?
I shot, so like for instance, like when I'm at home just shooting, I shoot .45. But at tournament I shot .5 in the woods and .5 and the 25 yard shoot, and then .45 for the rest.
Nice. And this one's from Leon. Shout out to Leon. Are you glad you jumped on the bandwagon of Cyan and Long Draw after that band set I sent you? So there you go. You touched on that earlier on. So it was the Cyan Precise Long Draw band he sent you, is it?
No, he sent me a Omega Green 16 to 10
Right.
long draw.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
You did say, yeah.
so he got me into trying long draw, and then I kept asking him, what latex should I try? I've tried most of them, and he's like, oh, try cyan. And then ever since then, I've been hooked on it.
Nice. So the next one's by Kerry Sandlin. Do you agree that they added a new rule? Each winner of ECST has to switch their frame holding hand for the next year as a returning champion.
Man, I'd have to hang it up. I'd shoot myself in the face and the hand. There's no way I could do it. I've tried, and it was not good.
Yeah, I was the same. It just naturally came to me. Are you left-handed or right-handed when it comes to holding your frame?
I'm a left-hand hold.
Left-hand hold, nice. So this one's by Michelle Mabel Taylor. David Coombs wants to know what was the most difficult shoot in the competition?
Definitely. I mean, not physically hardest or the most technical, but the knockdowns in front of everybody, I would say, is the hardest event for sure.
It's very different, isn't it, when there's a lot of people around? Because when I was in my group, the field target course at Harrogate is 50 targets long, and some of them are insane. They're 20 plus meters, and some of them are like 40 mils, which just got branches, and you've literally got to go through like scissors straight through these branches. And I was pulling off those shots, but then when it came to the knockdowns and all those people stood around watching, it just changed everything. And I don't know why. I've shot live in front of people, and it's just a completely different feeling, isn't it, when you've got all the eyes on
So,
you and you kind of feel that pressure. And it does do something. It changes. I could feel my hand shaking a little bit, and I kind of had to wait it out and think, right, relax. But it definitely does something.
yeah, between the time crunch you're in, everybody watching, the pressure to do well, yeah, it gets to you for sure. It doesn't get to some people, but it got to me.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that comes with experience as well. I mean, I've seen some of the guys that have been to competition after competition, and they're just so cool in the way they do it. It's just you can tell that it doesn't bother them at all, and I think that just comes with time and experience, doesn't it?
For sure. For sure.
Nice. Well, that's all the questions that we've got. I want to thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, but I also want to give the mic over to you and just leave the community with anything that you want to say.
Yeah. First off, thank you very much for having me on, Benji. I appreciate it. I'm honored to get on here. But for the community, I just want to thank everybody, man. I came in here and not knowing anything and wanted to be a part, and everybody helped me. Everybody wanted to help. Everybody befriended me, and just gave me all the help that I needed to get me going in the sport. And I want to do that back for the community and all the newcomers. But yeah, this community is awesome, and I don't plan on leaving anywhere anytime soon. And look forward to the next tournament.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for coming on. It's been awesome speaking to you. And again, a big well done on what you've done because not many people can do what you've done. And hopefully, we'll see a lot more of you in the near future.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Benji.
No worries. Take care, man.
Thank you.